Good morning. It's good to be with you again for our Thursday Word of the Day video. And our word for today is remember. There is, of course, a certain irony in me using the word remember because lately it seems it's harder and harder for me to remember. But as I think about the times we live in, I think it's important for us to focus on this word. Our Bible certainly did, especially the Old Testament book of Psalms. Now, Psalms is my favorite of my favorite Bible books. It's the prayer book of the Bible. The Psalms are prayers to God in every situation, from thanksgiving to crying out for help, from triumph to tragedy, from guilt to wonder. And the word remember is used in many ways. The psalmist often cries out to the Lord to remember God's servant. The psalmist sometimes prays to God to remember their sins no more. Sometimes there's a plea that God would remember God's promises. But often there's a call to remember all God's works and God's loving kindness to us. Let me give you an example from Psalm 30. Sing praise to the Lord, all God's faithful people. Remember what the Holy One has done and give God thanks. There's a continual refrain in our Bible, especially when times are difficult, to remember what God has done for us and continues to do for us. Sometimes it might not be easy to see that or appreciate it, but God's loving presence never lets us go, never leaves us on our own. Just like God's people in the Bible, our faith is strengthened when we remember that God has always been there. It helps us to realize that God will always be there. These are indeed difficult times. The news about the pandemic seems to be getting worse and worse. And the call for social justice seems to be more and more necessary. Times like this can be difficult. But it's just like the psalmist tells us. It's good to remember all that our Lord has done for us. When I think back on the most difficult moments in my life, I can so clearly see God's presence in so many ways. Often I couldn't see it clearly then, but when I look back on those times, I see God's presence woven into all the threads of that experience. How will we look back on these difficult times? How will we see God's love and compassion in our lives and in the lives of our world? How can we see them now? I don't know if you remember, but the first word of the day that we used was gratitude. We talked about how gratitude, our thankfulness to God, can help us to see and to feel God's love all around us. With thanksgiving in our hearts, we truly do remember God's love and actions for us. And remembering that, we can face the difficulties of today and say with the psalmist, "Tears may flow in the night, but joy comes in the morning. You have changed my sadness into joy. You have taken away my sorrow and surrounded me with joy. So I will not be silent. I will sing praise to you. Lord, you are my God. I will give you thanks forever."